Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to make a tumbler. Although I have made one of these tutorials in the past, I am using some new products and things to make tumbler making easier. This design was inspired by my good friend Judy over at Gracefully Created. Her tumbler was gorgeous and I had to make one myself. To start, we are using a 24 plump from the steel Magnolia. These tumblers are so unique and high quality. The owner of the company designed these herself with crafters in mind, knowing all of the boxes that we needed to be checked when looking for a tumbler. As you can see, there's a spot for a straw and a drinking spout on this as well. And whenever I open my tumblers out of my box, I wrap the lid in the bubble wrap, pop the lid back on, and if it is a custom order, I write the name and the description of the tumbler on the top of the box. It's just an extra small step that really helps me stay more organized. So the first thing that we want to do is remove the protective layer from the stainless steel. All stainless tumblers have this protective layer on them, and as you can see, at the moment it is repelling water. And by repelling water, you can imagine that it is also going to do the same thing to your paint and epoxy. It may appear that your paint and epoxy is adhering to your tumbler very well. However, if it's bumped, dropped, tipped over, it has a much likelier chance of separating from that stainless than if you were to have prepped your tumbler the proper way, and that paint and epoxy really has a grip onto that stainless steel. Now you can use sandpaper to do this and sand that surface off. However, an oily residue will be left behind, so you will need to go in with some dish detergent or grease remover and remove that oil off of the tumbler. MATTIFY does both of those things. It will prep your cup and it also removes any oils or residue left behind on your tumbler, so you can go straight into painting and or glitter application. Once you have spent a couple of minutes getting that surface off of your tumbler, run it under water and make sure that it no longer repels. As you can see, the water is standing, it is adhering to the cup basically, so we know for certain that our paints and our epoxy is going to do the same. Now once this is dry, I'm just going to pop in my pool noodle so I can put my turner arm in my cup and it be easier to paint. I'm going to be using Mistress of Evil and Let's Be Frank from PDB Creative Studio. Mistress of Evil is a gorgeous holographic black, so I'm going in with my COLORFLEX paint from Artistry company and using a makeup brush to get a really nice even coverage of this paint. As you can see, it is super pigmented and it is a 3-in-1, so it's a paint, primer, and glue all in one. Many of their colors only take one coat and you can put your glitter directly onto the paint. You can of course use spray paints and use the glitter glue or the epoxy method to adhere your glitter. If you want to know how to do that, just check out my older tutorials. I have lots using both methods. While my paint is still wet, I just dumped my glitter on, and look at the excellent coverage and how gorgeous this glitter is. Just take a knife or a pair of scissors, something to tap the top of your stainless tumbler and get that excess glitter to fall off. I allowed that to dry for 2 hours, and most of the time I do seal my glitter. This one I sealed with Rust-Oleum matte clear coat spray paint. You can also seal with glitter glue. It just really helps you get a good coverage the first time that you do your epoxy layer, and it also prevents any glitter from moving around and causing more micro bubbles than necessary. I gave one good coat for my initial glitter coverage, and I am using Artistry's 1:1 ratio fast set, and I will review with you how I mix this a little later on in the tutorial. So once we get our first layer on, I just went in with my torch to pop any micro bubbles before we add on our chunky glitter. You can use a heat gun with this epoxy. I just find that using a heat gun blows a lot of air and it causes dust particles to find their way to my cups. So my personal preference is a torch. As you can see, I am holding my Let's Be Frank about 1.5 to 2 feet away from my cup, and I'm very lightly sprinkling that around. You can also dump some in a little cup and use your hand to sprinkle that around as well, whatever works best for you. So with the Artistry 1:1 ratio fast set, after 45 minutes, you can add on a second layer. My initial layer was probably around 20 milliliters, and this one is going to be 15 to 20 milliliters of epoxy. So I have my part A, and what I do is put my part A in my cup first, and then I use my heat gun and twirl my cup in a circular motion so I can just heat that part A up. Then I add in my part B, equal parts of course, and use my plastic stir stick from Artistry as well to mix my epoxy together. You want to mix for about 2 to 3 minutes or more depending on how much epoxy you are mixing at one time, or of course until it is crystal clear. Now, not only am I able to add on my second layer within 45 minutes of application, my tumbler is ready for decals after about 3 to 4 hours, which is incredible. Now for some super exciting news, Gracefully Created is releasing white decals February 21st at 10 a.m. Central. She will be releasing a bundle at first at gracefullycreatedccd.com. I will link her group below so you can stay updated and be right on top of that so you can snag. They are going to have limited availability at first, but then they will be released later this week individually at regular price. And by white decal, I mean that the decal has a white layer of ink in behind it. So you cannot see the clear once epoxy has went over top of it, and all you can see is the bright, vibrant colors of your decal. I am blown away because I have not seen one this bright and vibrant printed like this before. Now you want to be very, very careful with touching the clear portion of your decal. You have oils on your skin, lint, dust, anything can attach to it, and that you will be able to see through it. So I took a very teeny tiny corner of it with my nail, lifted it up and trimmed off a little slither off of the backing. And then I put my decal in place, pressed the little slither down that was exposed, and used the hinge method to press my decal down. You want to make sure that all of the bubbles are out from underneath that clear portion so that it does not show under your epoxy. The dimensional glitter helps mute the clear background so you are unable to see it. So if you are using one of these on a solid cup, you will want to trim as close to the decal as possible to remove any of that excess clear around it so it is not visible on your solid tumbler. Now, normally I would have put a layer of epoxy on top of this decal before moving into cleaning my rims. Normally that is my last step, but for the purpose of getting the news out to y'all, I went ahead and done this prior to adding my top final layers. I took my craft blade and went around the rim of the cup, just trimming off any of that excess glitter that was sort of sticking up. And then I take my 220 grit sandpaper and cup my hand around the top of the cup, making sure I'm not touching my decal since it is not sealed at this point, and exposing a little slither of that stainless around the top. This is going to make for a super easy cleanup at the end and give our epoxy a really nice seal around the rim of our tumbler. Now for the bottom, you want to be very careful whenever you are sanding around the bottom rim. You want to make sure that you don't sand too hard or add too much pressure. That way you don't go through and sand down to that stainless. Once I finished with my 220, I went in with a 400 grit, which is much finer and will give me a very nice and smooth finish. Make sure that you wash it off really well and dry completely before adding on your final layers of epoxy. I always seal my decals in with 2 final layers of epoxy. And for this, we are also using the ARTISTRY 1:1 ratio fast set. Another amazing trait of this epoxy is that you can also use it for your final layer of epoxy. So with a quick dry time, I was able to add on my second and final layer after 45 minutes. And within that same day, I was able to remove from my turner and clean the rim of my tumbler. So to do so, I removed the pool noodle from inside of my tumbler, sat that to the side, and then used my craft knife to go around the rim of my tumbler. You can see I'm not at an angle, I'm going straight around that top rim. That way we can allow that little slither of stainless to give us a really good seal with our epoxy. Now, if you used spray paint or if you got any paint residue on the inside of your tumbler, you're going to want to use acetone, which I usually get from the painting section at either a hardware store or Walmart. Clean out the inside of your rim. And if you have any pesky paint residue left behind that is really hard to get out, my little trick is to use Barkeeper's Friend, which can be found in the cleaning section, and just go around the inside of your rim with a paper towel, wash your cup off, dry it off, and you are done. I hope that you all enjoyed this tutorial and that you were able to take away some good tips and tricks to help you get started or to help you improve your tumbler making. All of the materials that I used along with coupon codes will be listed down below in the description box. And also, I did forget to mention earlier that PDB Creative Studio now has a starter box for beginners that includes epoxy, glitter, and lots of other materials to help you get started. I will also link that below for you. And here in the near future, I will have another tutorial on how to make a photo prop, take those tumbler pictures, and how to package those tumblers. If you aren't already following us on Instagram or part of our Facebook group, hop on both of those because I share additional tips and tricks in both. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you next time.